There is a certain magic to storytelling.
Oh, absolutely.
We use it to make sense of an incredibly complex world. And for a long time, the barriers to creating those really stunning, immersive, animated documentaries—
The ones that just grab you.
Right, the kind that grab your attention and refuse to let go. The barriers for that were just astronomically high. You needed a dedicated team of animators. You needed years of technical software skills.
Huge budgets, too.
Exactly. But if you look closely over the last few months, those barriers have quietly vanished.
They really have. Welcome back to the Deep Dive, everyone. Today, we are embarking on a really fascinating mission.
We're going to unpack a highly precise step-by-step workflow.
Yeah, one that allows absolutely anyone to build a Vox-style animated documentary. And we are doing this by leveraging an interconnected stack of AI tools.
Which means zero coding required. You don't need to spend thousands of hours learning complex software like After Effects. We are talking about fundamentally changing how we produce high-level educational content.
It really is a paradigm shift. We have a very clear roadmap for you today to make this tangible. We're going to start with Claude to architect our script and build our prompts.
The foundation.
Right. Then we move the operation over to Google Flow and a tool called ZAPI Flow, which is where we automate the generation of our imagery.
And after we have our art,
we turn those static images into fluid video. Finally, we bring all those pieces together for a seamless assembly in CapCut.
All right, let's unpack this. We begin our journey with Claude. And looking at the workflow, it makes perfect sense that this is our foundation.
It's mandatory.
It's like stacking Lego blocks of data.
Yeah.
You absolutely cannot build the visual layers until your narrative foundation is perfectly solid.
That is the biggest mistake people make. They want to rush straight to the image generation.
Because it's the fun, flashy part.
Exactly. But you have to start by setting up Claude. Say you're building a channel around history or unusual true stories. You want to ask Claude to generate about 10 distinct video ideas for a tight 60-second video.
And the reason we aim for 60 seconds is that it forces economy. It forces you to be ruthless with your storytelling. But when you are looking at those 10 ideas Claude spits out, what exactly makes one of them a winner?
You are looking for a very specific structural DNA. You need an idea with a completely unambiguous main character.
Okay.
They need to face a clear, understandable problem. And the story has to have a definitive, satisfying ending.
So no broad summaries.
Right. If the AI suggests a broad overview of the Roman Empire, you throw it out. But if it suggests the specific story of the Roman soldier who accidentally started a riot,
that is a winner.
That's the one.
Because documentaries, especially short-form ones, need a through line. So once you pick that specific idea, you don't just ask Claude to write the script blindly.
No, you have to ask it for a story plan first. You needed to map out the opening hook, introduce the main character, arrange the events in a logical order, build to a turning point, and then hit that strong ending.
And only after that skeletal structure is locked in do you ask Claude to flesh it out into a script.
All right, now, a 60-second video translates to roughly 130 to 150 words. That is standard speaking pace.
And there are very strict rules for this prompt.
Very strict. You demand a strong 2-sentence hook. You instruct the AI to use a natural, authoritative documentary voice.
And crucially, and this is where I see a lot of people trip up, no camera instructions, no scene numbers, no visual directions at all at this stage.
Just the raw narrative text.
Exactly.
Because then comes what I consider the most vital quality control check in the entire process. You have to review that script strictly for visual clarity.
You are looking at the sentence structure itself.
Yes. If Claude gave you a sentence that contains multiple physical actions, you have to rewrite it. Every single sentence must describe only one clear visual moment.
I have to admit something here. I still wrestle with prompt drift myself.
That happens to everyone.
It's tough. I just keep giving the AI too many complex ideas at once. And for anyone listening who isn't familiar, prompt drift is when AI slowly wanders away from your original instructions over time. I always have this urge to pack as much detail as possible into a single line.
It's totally natural. As humans, we think in complex overlapping layers. We imagine a scene where someone is running down a hallway while checking their watch and yelling over their shoulder.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have to resist that urge when building this blueprint.
It really is like drafting a blueprint for a house. You have to finalize the structural framing on paper before you ever step foot in a hardware store to buy paint. But this raises an important question.
Okay.
Why are we being so brutally strict about this? Why limit every single sentence to just one action?
It comes down to how text-to-image AI actually processes language. The AI maps your words to mathematical concepts in its latent space.
Right.
If you combine actions, if you tell it a character is running and reading a book simultaneously, the AI doesn't layer those actions like a human illustrator would.
It panics.
It mathematically averages the two concepts. You end up with a strange, melted image where the character's legs are made of pages. You need one single, isolated focal point per visual beat.
So keeping it simple stops the AI from blending ideas into a mess.
You're essentially protecting the AI from its own computational confusion.
Okay, so now we have a script, and it was entirely composed of single action sentences. We've built the foundation. Now we have to actually visualize the story.
Yes, the visual translation.
We need to translate those narrative words into exact visual instructions for the image generator.
And we rely on Claude again for this phase. You prompt Claude to take that finalized script and divide it into numbered visual beats.
So you are getting one highly specific visual moment per beat.
Exactly. It has to stay in the exact same story order, and it has to mathematically align with that tight 60-second pacing.
So if the script is 12 sentences, Claude is giving us 12 visual beats.
Right.
Then we have to create one image prompt for each of those beats. And this is where the aesthetic identity of the documentary gets locked in.
The style rules here are non-negotiable if you want that professional look. You explicitly tell Claude to format these prompts as a Vox-style paper cut illustration.
You want to ask for simple geometric shapes.
Flat graphical layers and a soft, muted color palette. And you always specify a 16:9 aspect ratio so it fits a standard video frame.
Now, I need to push back on one of the rules in this workflow because it feels counterintuitive.
Sure.
If we are ultimately making a dynamic video, why are we explicitly avoiding any camera terminology in these initial prompts? Why can't I tell it to pan left?
Because you have to remember what tool you were building these prompts for. This stage is strictly for generating flat, static images.
Oh, I see.
Text-to-image models don't understand the concept of time or motion. If you use a cinematic term like pan or zoom, the AI tries to draw the physical manifestation of that word into a single frozen frame.
Oh, wow. So it's looking at its training data and associating the word zoom with a physical camera lens.
Yes, it will literally hallucinate a giant camera lens floating in the middle of your historical scene.
That's hilarious.
Or it will wildly distort the perspective of the background, trying to mimic the physical shape of a panning motion. It destroys the flat, paper-cut aesthetic entirely.
Right. We are only painting the canvas right now, not moving the camera.
Precisely. The camera comes much later in the pipeline. Once you have these static visual prompts perfected, you have Claude export them as a clean text file.
And the formatting rule here is critical.
Very. You put each prompt on a brand new line. You strip out all the numbers, all the titles, and all the conversational filler. You just want the raw, isolated text prompts in a list.
That makes perfect sense. So now we have our pristine text instructions. It is time to leave the design studio and head to the factory floor.
My favorite part.
We are going to fire up the automated assembly line to mass produce this artwork. We're using Google Flow and a brilliant little Chrome extension called ZAPI Flow.
This is the inflection point where manual labor turns into system management. You start by opening Google Flow. You select their image generation mode, ensure your aspect ratio is locked at 16:9, and then you select the Nano Banana Pro model from their drop-down list.
Nano Banana Pro, it sounds completely absurd, but there is a real technical reason we're using this specific model, right?
There really is. Despite the funny name, it is a highly specialized diffusion model. A lot of the major image generators heavily favor photorealism.
Yeah, they want cinematic lighting.
Deep shadows, intricate textures. Nano Banana Pro is incredibly effective at adhering to stylized, flat, vector-like aesthetics. It understands the simplicity of the paper-cut look.
But before we just unleash the machine, the workflow calls for a crucial safety check. You must test the very first prompt manually. You literally copy and paste line 1 and hit generate.
Because automated garbage is still garbage. It's just produced a lot faster. You have to ensure that the Vox-style paper-cut look is rendering correctly. Is the color palette right? Are the shapes clean? You want to verify that aesthetic baseline before you commit to generating the entire batch.
And once you confirm that first image is perfect, the real automation begins. You install the ZAPI Flow extension into your browser. You upload that clean text file we exported from Claude directly into ZAPI Flow.
And you have to make sure you turn off serial numbers in the settings so those numbers don't mess up your file names.
Good tip. ZAPI Flow operates like a macro. It reads that text document from top to bottom.
Right.
When you hit generate, ZAPI Flow takes over your browser. It automatically pastes the first prompt into Google Flow. It clicks generate. It waits for the image to finish processing.
And then it automatically downloads the finished image to your hard drive, grabs the next prompt from your text file, and loops the process.
Whoa. Imagine automating an entire storyboard while you just sit back and watch. You can literally step away to make a cup of coffee, and you've got an invisible assistant sitting at your desk, patiently illustrating an entire documentary.
It democratizes production in a way we haven't seen before. But you can't entirely abdicate responsibility. Once ZAPI finishes, you have a folder full of images. You still need to put on your director's hat and review those downloaded files for consistency.
Right, because AI is prone to drifting. You're checking the character's face. Are they wearing the same clothes in shot 5 as they were in shot 1? Did the AI suddenly introduce 3D shading into our flat paper-cut world?
Does the action on screen actually match the script you wrote? Quality control is what separates amateur AI video from professional content.
Now, relying on browser automation can sometimes be finicky. What happens if there's a technical hiccup? Say you are mid-setup, and ZAPI Flow suddenly throws an error saying it can't detect the Google Flow project.
It happens occasionally. It's usually just a simple DOM connection issue in the browser. You don't need to panic or rewrite your prompts. You simply refresh the Google Flow web page and then reopen the ZAPI Flow extension. It essentially forces the two tools to shake hands again and resets the connection.
Got it. Just a quick page refresh to sync the two tools up again?
That's all it takes.
So, assuming our batch generation went perfectly, we now have a folder full of perfectly consistent, beautiful, static paper-cut images. The next phase is where we actually add the magic of motion.
This is where it gets real.
But we have to do this incredibly carefully so we don't break the art style we just spent so much time building.
This is easily the most delicate phase of the workflow. We are moving from static generation to temporal generation. To do this, we go back to Claude one last time and we ask it to write a universal animation prompt.
And there are very strict parameters for this universal prompt. You are instructing Claude that you want natural, incredibly simple movement. You want to ask for a slow camera pan or a very gentle zoom.
You explicitly tell it to maintain the original flat visual style, and you absolutely forbid any fast movement or dramatic cinematic effects.
This universal prompt acts as your anchor. You take it and you switch Google Flow from its image generation mode over to its image to video mode,
Keeping your 16:9 ratio locked in.
Exactly. Then you upload your perfect static images one by one, being very careful to keep them in the exact chronological order of your story.
And here's where the prompting gets interesting. For each individual image, you combine that universal animation prompt with one short, highly unique sentence that describes the specific movement for that exact scene.
It's a dual prompt strategy. The universal prompt tells the video model, keep the style stable and keep the camera slow.
And the specific short sentence tells the motion vectors what is actually happening. It might be as simple as character handing over a document or just clouds drifting slowly forward.
And we are only generating these clips to last about 5 to 6 seconds each. Once they render, you are reviewing every single clip with a magnifying glass.
You have to.
You are checking to ensure the character's face doesn't suddenly morph into a different person halfway through the clip. You are making sure the camera doesn't whip around so fast that it tears the paper cut composition apart.
Because if the camera moves too fast, the AI has to invent new pixels to fill the space it didn't expect to see. And it usually invents garbage.
It makes me think of a diorama. The motion you are trying to achieve is like a gentle breeze blowing through a paper diorama. You aren't trying to film a massive Hollywood explosion. You just want subtle, breathing life.
That is the perfect analogy. The charm of the Vox-style is in its restraint. But there is a deeper technical reason for that restraint, too.
That's actually what I wanted to ask. Why are we restricting the video to such tiny increments? Why limit it to such tiny 5-second increments of slow movement?
It comes down to a concept called temporal consistency. Current AI video models have a very short memory. When they draw frame 1, they know exactly what the character looks like. By the time they have to draw frame 150, the mathematical weights start to degrade. If you force large, complex movements, the AI loses track of the underlying image structure.
The flat paper texture literally starts to melt.
The colors bleed. Faces distort into these strange, fleshy blobs because the model defaults back to photorealistic training data when it gets confused.
Yeah, pushing the AI too hard turns our clean art into a glitchy mess.
Restraint is the only way to maintain the illusion.
Which brings us to the final stage of the workflow. We have all our moving, breathing scenes scattered on our hard drive. Now we have to stitch them together into a seamless narrative flow.
Putting the puzzle together.
And for this final assembly, we use CapCut. It's incredibly accessible but powerful enough for professional work. You open CapCut, you drop your voiceover track on the timeline, and then you import all of those beautiful 5 to 6 second clips.
And because you were so hyper-organized, you just place them on the timeline in the exact order of the original visual beats you planned with Claude hours ago.
This is where you realize why the foundation was so important. You aren't trying to figure out the story in the edit.
The story's already told.
You are simply trimming any awkward extra movement at the very beginning or end of a clip. You might add some incredibly light cross-dissolve transitions, but only if they strictly help explain an important narrative shift.
It's amazing how frictionless this editing phase actually is. I spent days agonizing over timelines in Premiere Pro in the past. But because we were so strict with character consistency and the prompt order back in steps 2 and 3, the pieces just organically snap together.
You are no longer fixing mistakes in the edit. You solved all the creative problems during the prompt phase.
Exactly. You might add some minimal text on screen to highlight a date or a name, but once the timeline flows cleanly against the voiceover, you're done. You just export the finished piece as a crisp 1080p MP4 file.
I can easily imagine people getting carried away right here at the finish line, though. Is it tempting to over-edit and add flashy transitions at this stage?
Oh, incredibly.
Because CapCut has thousands of wild effects built right in.
It is very tempting to throw in a 3D spin or a wild motion blur. But you have to remember cognitive load. Over-editing completely ruins the calm, authoritative documentary vibe we built.
That makes total sense.
The Vox-style works because the visual simplicity allows the viewer's brain to focus entirely on the information you are delivering. If you add flashy transitions, you are competing with your own script for the viewer's attention.
Makes sense. We want the story to shine, not the editing software effects.
The story is the entire point.
So let's step back and look at the whole picture here. We have covered a massive amount of technical ground today, from language models to latent space to timeline assembly. When you synthesize all of this, what is the true big idea we should be walking away with?
The big idea here is that the very nature of high-level video production has fundamentally shifted. It has moved away from manual, pixel-pushing technical labor and has transformed into high-level system management. You are no longer the animator drawing every frame.
You are the executive producer managing a team of specialized digital agents.
Precisely. Claude is acting as your head writer and your director of photography. ZAPI Flow is your automated factory assembly line. Google Flow is your lead artist. And CapCut is just the final display case where you present the work.
Anyone who has good taste, clear logic, and the patience to manage a system can now produce professional-grade animations.
But the crucial takeaway is that the key to this entire automated process is consistency. You have to keep your instructions incredibly simple at every single stage. Precision language is the new technical skill. If you are sloppy with your words in step 1, the entire automated system breaks down by step 4.
The AI is only as good as the clarity of the instructions you feed it.
Exactly.
We started this deep dive by talking about the magic of storytelling. And the reality is that magic is now fully accessible to almost anyone with an internet connection and a good idea. It is a profoundly fascinating time to be a creator, or really, just a curious person.
It's an exciting frontier.
We want to thank you for joining us today to unpack all of this.
It has been an absolute blast walking through this workflow. The tools are only going to get faster from here.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own. We just walked through how an entire visually stunning historical documentary can be beautifully animated in a single afternoon. And it was all done by one person, essentially just typing text into a box.
Yeah.
If that is the reality today, what happens to the way we consume education 5 years from now? Will every student everywhere be learning from custom AI-generated documentaries that are built in real time, tailored specifically to their exact curiosities and learning styles? It is a wild thing to think about. Until next time, keep exploring.